Hey folks, welcome back to the Combo Classroom. I'm beginning by setting up some clocks on our shelf. Hopefully won't fall. It's been quite windy and rainy, and many of the clocks have fallen out of their proper zones. Not that they have a technically designated zone, but any zone that seems to let them give a chance to shine. Let them show their clock face to the world and camera. Let's set a few more up because all these fell during the recent rain and winds. My yard floods, as some combo lords may remember, so it doesn't only get windy at these times. It also gets flood-like, and there are some large puddles in the upcoming next episode for sure. Our next episode that I'm making for my main combo class channel will be about modular arithmetic, which is a clock-like sort of math. And so perhaps having these clocks in the background will prime the brain for some clock-like math. In this case, we've done modular addition is something I basically explained because it's a pretty simple pattern. It has a lot of cool stuff in it, but the pattern itself is pretty simple. So after explaining modular addition, which is a clock-like way of adding numbers, I did make an episode about modular multiplication, and then later an episode about modular division. So some keen minds among you may guess what's coming next. We're going to modular exponentiation. So we're going to be looking at patterns with exponentiation, but in a clock-like form in our next episode. And it does have a lot of floods in it because the whole yard was flooded while I've been filming this, and it's still quite muddy. Now, pardon that my voice is still a bit off. There was also, in addition to our water incidents that the sky causes, there was a fire incident as well. I've always told you folks that I would not be the first person to cause a fire truck to need to come to this house, that I am safer with my fires than you may realize. But unrelated to that, we have a new oven in my house, and it did something weird. Something ignited in the oven and started burning the plastic in the oven. Unrelated to a stunt, not related to, I guess I should pull this up. I know that recently there is a clip in one of my episodes that is me lighting an oven on fire, essentially. This is not the oven I am talking about. Recently in my egg episode, there was a bit where, oh no, I don't want to see an ad. We'll hide that while it plays. I don't want to get copyright struck for
I've spent my life making sure people in power cannot ignore us. Our voices, our communities, our hopes, and our dreams. Now, as an elected member of Congress, I want to bring people along with me. I'm fighting for the mother who's sleeping in her car. I am fighting for the father who has lost his child to gun violence. I am fighting for folks to feel safe in our community. I'm running for Congress to fight for us. I'm Latifah Simon.
Hey folks, I'm Demotro, and about a year ago, I learned something quite interesting about eggs, and I haven't been able to stop thinking about it since. So I figured I want to not only test.
Here, let's put me on top of it too, because it's getting a little windy, just in case any clocks do fall in the background. Might as well capture it. Now, there is a scene recently where I,
a hard-boiled egg, but eventually I decided to switch locations.
So I figured, let's try and cook
as fun as it is to cook on a campfire, perhaps we should continue these egg experiments on some sort of stove. Maybe we should use the oven of some. Whoa! Okay. Perhaps.
Okay, I know I've recently lit an oven on fire, but this was an old oven that was broken, which is why I lit a separate fire in it. The oven itself didn't work. And we got a new oven to replace it. You know, if my family needs to replace an oven, when we're getting rid of the old oven, it turns out nobody wanted to buy a half-broken oven. people only, and after this I know it was fully broken, but I mean before this nobody wanted to buy a half broken oven, and so you have to pay a garbage disposal company to take your old oven. And so it's like, well, the garbage disposal company is not going to care if I got a few burn marks on
And
this thing.
the oven are in some sort of actual kitchen.
I did burn an oven. However, that is not the oven that has caused my voice to sound a little hoarse right now that burnt last night. In my house, the new oven did something really weird. And it was like igniting this plasticky smell. And this plasticky smell filled the house. And it was getting so weird and we couldn't turn it off. Then my family called the fire department, and the fire department came and, like, I guess got it to stop doing it by unplugging it and maybe spraying stuff. I don't know. But anyway, there was this weird plastic smell that engulfed my house, and I have to be careful about my new oven. And that means that if I die in a fire, it's probably not from one of my fire stunts. It's probably from shoddy corporate manufacturing. So, in any case, my voice is a bit hoarse because the flames part of this title refers to the fact that there was something weird burning in my oven that began burning the plastic parts inside the oven and engulfed the house with a bad cloud of smoke last night, and we called the fire department. And it's good for now, but we are keeping an eye on that oven. I don't trust that oven. Anyway, that's the flames part of the title. There are also names and games in our title because I wanted to not only show you folks while I have this open that the last episode I put on this main channel is the longest I have put out yet. The magic cards that broke the game on my Combo Class channel is over an hour. And I know my live streams often go over an hour, but I've never made an edited piece of content that's over an hour. That's like edited in the way that I consider an episode or documentary or something. So this is the longest edited thing I have ever created yet. We'll go even longer. Later in this grade, there will be long episodes as well. There's going to be a few more that could touch around an hour, but the next one will probably be more like 20 or 30 minutes. The one about our modular exponentiation. But make sure you do catch this, even if you do play Magic and you think I'm just talking about the Power 9. Nope. I did a strong analysis of many different ways of analyzing the most powerful card. And if you don't play Magic, don't worry. It still tells us a lot about different games. Still tells us, if I'm designing a game, what resources are too powerful or too weak or so on. Like, I've learned that no matter what game you design, in card games you usually have a hand, and that drawing a card is usually more important than gaining the other resources, unless there are costs to the cards, like a mana cost in here, in which case that could be a secondarily as important thing, things that cheat your cost. So, which Magic cards broke the game? Some people thought this title was a little hyperbolic because the game's not fully broken, it's still a good game. But these would have broken the game if they did not ban them from many tournament structures, or edit the rules in them, or things like that. So the cards in this video did break the game at some point. They have found a way to fix it via bannings and such. Now, the next episode will be coming soon. That, as we can see, is just one of several. You may have, any keen viewers may have seen a few other tabs open, because I also wanted to talk about not just game or names and wait, which order have we gone? Flames and games, but also names. Now, a little bit more about the games. I have been designing a game similar to this numberation episode I made, but also inspiration from my game theory episodes, where players have a deck of different numerations. A nickname I have for things like ×2 or +1, a number with an operation before it. So squaring something is a numberation because that's to the power of 2. Technically, a numberation could be any function that inputs a number and either tells you error or here's your new number. So a numberation could theoretically be any function that turns a number into either a new number or an error. But in the game here, the errors will be the ones you can't play. You can only play it if it's a valid numberation. Essentially in the game, you'll have two piles of cards, one of which begins at a larger number, say 60 or so, one of which begins at a lower number, say 1, and you play numerations back and forth, trying to make the two piles equal on your turn. Now, this game I have been developing, and I think it's a much simpler version of many games that I have been contemplating recently. I have designed a really complex game that I would love to make, but I will need to work with artists, people who design good permanent cardstock that will last many years, and crazy things. I might make a simpler version of a game that I sell for as cheap as possible and maybe even make myself at home. Which will just be the right ratios of the numberation cards, whatever dice you need to have with the numberation cards, maybe a little play mat where you put the different piles, and so on. Now, that's the update about our games. As far as our names, what did I mean about names? Well, this is a tangential thing. And also to anybody who's curious about more game stuff in the future, if this stream goes long enough that I run through all of our fun name facts, we will come back to games in the form of returning to Magic cards, since I have done a strong analysis of them recently, spent a lot of time on it, and not all of it fit in the episode I made. So perhaps if anyone's interested, later in the stream, we'll look at a few other aspects of Magic cards' history that caused cards to be broken or unbroken or such. For example, certain combos of cards, as they nickname when two cards work very well together. Combo! Yeah, I can't believe that when I spray painted it, it was completely unintentional that in the class, the CL is like a little more distanced or italicized or something than the ass part of it. But whenever we try and film next to the grandfather clock over there, it's always like, I gotta ask, like, Carlo, does the background just say ass behind me? Because if so, we have to figure out if this is the right shot where I think that's funny to purposefully put in, or if we want to pan out so it doesn't just say ass. And to anybody who doesn't know the lore, I'm not going to fully go into this, but there was this thing in grade -1 where YouTube was auto-correcting my channel name when they first introduced @ and a handle as opposed to a URL, that they were doing @ and it glitched my channel name every time for like a month to the last 3 letters of the channel name. So it was whenever I tried to write, here's the link to my channel, youtube.com/combo class. Because I would say that on streams like this, like that's my other channel where main episodes go. I'd maybe put that in a pinned comment. It would correct it to, this is my main channel, @ass. And I'm like, no, my main channel is not like hashtag @ass. No, stop auto-correcting it like that, YouTube. That is legitimate lore. Some people thought I like did some genius like hacking thing to make that video or something, but no, that just happened to me. So, anyway, going forward with our video, we may come back to Magic cards and look at other aspects that did not make it into my recent long episode. But for now, I did want to share with you folks this funny little rabbit hole I stumbled down upon another thing that rhymes with flames and games. This thing is names. Now, names are already quite interesting to me for a few reasons, one being that I write novels, so I'm hopefully going to try and finish one of the several novels I've been working on some point this year or next year. And I have many half-finished novels that I am in the midst of writing that I have more than a book worth of brainstorms, but are far from in a finished state. Now, with these, I need to decide names for characters. So I am interested in what names represent, which names sound like a common, simple name, and will that change in the future? Which names sound funny, and will that change in the future? And etc. And as far as my name, my birth name is Dimitri with 3 I's. Now, I go by Demotro for a few reasons. There was a series of jokes that led to this in my life before I developed this nickname. So there was a whole build-up in my life as to why I thought the I's switching to O's would make sense. But it was also to claim what can be known as a mononym. Let me pull up the article for mononym, because a mononym is a name that is just one word. And usually that's hard to get away with. Usually if you say your first name, you'll get confused with others. And if you say your last name, you'll get confused with others. And some people do get away with having a mononym. For example, you have certain, like musical performers, for example, you could say like Seal or Drake, or people who have a one-word name, Beyonce. You could also say some people like Gandhi, for example, Mahatma Gandhi. If you just say the name Gandhi, although there are other Gandhis, people think of that one guy. So it's quite hard to claim a mononym, especially a short, spellable one. Somehow we've done it. I think if you search Demotro, I come up. And so Demotro made it so that I didn't need a first name and a last name to have a uniquely definable name that described just me. It was now a single name that was still just as long as Dimitri, but strangely unused and unclaimed throughout much of culture or the world. I have not met any other Demotros, and if there had been another famous Demotro, if we searched that, I wouldn't be the one to come up. So, claiming a mononym was a fun goal of mine. But let's also think about this word mononym. As far as my names, I'm okay if anyone who meets me in person calls me either Dimitri or Demotro. Both of them, one of them is my birth name, and a lot of friends call me. One of them is my nickname, a lot of other friends call me. So either of those is an okay name to me. And one of them I use sort of as more of my nickname or stage name. And one of them is the name I put on legal forms and such. Now, when I wanted to look at this word, I mostly wanted to look at the end of the word, because this is actually a cool little combo they created right here, where they've created a word, mononym, is because mono means one, and onym means something. So the O kind of hit both of those, that middle O. Now, what is an onym? Well, it's an important enough thing that there is a Wikipedia article about it. Technically, you call it what's called a bound morpheme, but basically, it is a suffix to a word. You add it at the end of a word, and these are examples of onyms you may be used to. An acronym, okay, a lot of these you may not be used to. Yeah, I'm not even used to half of these. Yeah, I don't know what half of these are. So I would like to read through this a little more. And this is one of several articles that I'm going to be researching. But while I was looking at that, I found a funny one of them that I thought would be funny to cover on stream. These are what are known as aptronyms. And aptronyms are a certain we have a suffix right here, the anim on top of whatever aptra means. So what is an aptronym? It's something that I don't know if I'll ever put in an episode because I have so many brainstorms lined up of future episodes. So I figured whether or not this shows up in an episode, I need to show my stream combo lords who watch the streams during or after the fact about these aptronyms, because I find them quite hilarious as well as informative. Now, an aptronym can be defined as a term used for people whose names and occupations or situations have a close correspondence. Now, my name didn't have a chance for that, but let's say my name was Dimitri Teacher. Let's say my last name was Teacher. Well, you could say I have a bit of an aptronym because I fell into the teaching profession to a degree. Or if my name was Dimitri YouTuber or Dimitri Writer or Dimitri Musician, any of those would be like, whoa, that fits things I do strangely well. But here we can see a weird analysis kind of philosophically and societally of to what degree are we finding coincidences out of the sea of people who have had different professions? And out of this ocean of people, over time, there have certainly been people whose names have lined up with their hobbies or occupation. Occupation being like job. Or to what degree do people's names steer them a direction? Some philosophers believe that some of these people may have found this profession because their name led them that way. Now, back in the day, you would often be named after what you did. Now, you can see it in my credits of my main episode, so I'll just say it here. If you're trying to scam me or stalk me or whatever, you're going to have a really bad time. I'll win that fight. But, so I'll just say my full name and don't scam or stalk me. Because it's already in my credits of my episodes. My last name is Zucker. Sort of like the rich guy Zuckerberg, but I don't have the berg at the end. Luckily, it's not identical to a rich asshole's name. So, oh yeah, cat's on the fence. Sazabas, what are you doing up there? I don't know if you saw him. He just went on the fence over into the bamboo. Anyway, Zucker is a German word meaning sugar. So technically my name translates to Dimitri Sugar. And that's because the name came from my grandfather, who unfortunately was in Germany. He was a German by descent, Jewish person during the Holocaust. So, unfortunately, my grandfather on my dad's side, who I never met, who died very young, probably partially from the stress of all of this, saw his whole family die and managed to escape the Holocaust and make it to America and have kids, and then they had kids, and that's why I'm here teaching you. So my grandfather escaped the Holocaust, but he saw a lot of his family die. And we don't know, because of that, much about my great-grandfather, his father. His father died in the Holocaust, who would be my great-grandfather, and we don't really know the details. Like, the Nazis purposefully destroyed a lot of family records, so you can't track stuff like that. Now, I assume, and from what I've heard, I think that I have clues that this is true, that either him or one or two people generations before were a baker, because Zucker meant sugar, and it often would be the name for the profession of somebody who is like a pastry baker or something. Often your last name would be your profession. And so I think somewhere along the line there was like someone who cooked sweet pastries or something who was given the last name Zucker for sugar, which has been passed down to me at this point. So, does that make me like sugar more? Not necessarily, because it's not necessarily the word. I often forget it means that because it's in German and it translates. But if my last name was straight up Sugar, would that have changed, like in my language, would that have changed my life at all? Possibly. I don't know. Because we don't know whether these ones are each more on the side of a coincidence out of the ocean of things that have happened in history, and more on the side of names do have what is known as nominative determinism, the hypothesis that people tend to gravitate toward areas of work that fit their names. Perhaps we could even add a third category that I just thought of, which is perhaps genetically you might fall into a similar profession as your ancestors, and perhaps your ancestors got named after their profession in this way, and maybe you have a genetic predisposition to want to be a baker also, or whatever. Well, these are some aptronyms that we can find that are fun. They got a great list here. Dude's last name's Angst. He's a psychiatrist about anxiety. We got a footballer named Ball. We got a bassist named Bass. We got a couple of those. The guy who invented the telephone has Bell in his name. That's kind of a stretch, but I guess it does have a bell on it in the original telephones. And that's why we hear the ringing sound now is a altered version of that history. We got a bishop named Bishop. We got a meteorologist named Blizzard. A sprinter named Bolt. We got a neurologist named Brain. We got a drug trafficker named Coke. We got a guy who works on toilets named Crapper. And some people think the toilet was named after this guy. I'm not sure if that's true or not. I'll have to look into that. It says here that his notability with regard to toilets has often been overstated. I think people thought it was a funny idea that, like, this guy named Thomas Crapper was working on toilets, so they decided, like, someone stretched the truth into Thomas Crapper invented the toilet, and that goes around now, and, like, that's why crap is the word, is because it was invented by a guy called Toilet Crap, Thomas Crapper. But it says here that it was mostly overstated, and I believe I've read that elsewhere as well. We got a chili pepper breeder who's named Curry. We got an economist named Dollar. We got a swimmer named Float. A gardener named Flower Dew. Meteorologist Freeze. We got someone named Headline. That person needs to write headlines in some form or another. You got a hedge fund manager named Hedges. You got a baseball player named Fielder. You got a judge named Laws. You got... There's a lot of funny ones here, but it even gets funnier. Because, you know what would be funnier than people whose name fell exactly into their profession? Would be people whose name was the opposite of their profession or hobbies. Like if my last name was like anti-teacher or like hate math or something. You know, if it just like does not line up. That is pretty funny. And they have a sector about that as well. These are known as inaptronyms. These ones are people who the name does not describe the type of person they seem to be. We have a police officer named Rob Banks. We have a baseball pitcher named Grant Balfour, Ball 4 is when you let the other team get something better, known as a walk. So you're like, you don't want to grant a ball 4 ever if you're a pitcher. We have, this one's so good. So this band ZZ Top was a rock band, and they all had big beards, except for the member named Frank Beard. Frank Beard is the only one who doesn't have a beard. We got, okay, a white supremacist. That's evil. Remember, around combo class, we respect people of all cultures, all genders, all races, stuff like that. If you're a white supremacist, we don't need you here. So, yeah, we can laugh at the fact that the guy who was into white supremacy had black as a last name. That's pretty fun that he had to struggle with that because he made other people struggle. Now, we got a cricketer named Bowler, and primarily a batsman. I can't get into that. I'm not a sports guy. Oh, this is bad ironic. It's one thing if you fall into the profession on purpose that matches the opposite of your name. This one, he had an accident that made the name match. This guy lost a leg, and his name's Foot. I could have lost a leg. You guys don't know. I have a giant, well, some of you know who watch the streams. I have a giant scar on each side of my legs. I've had massive surgeries. I've been through some crazy things. No. We got Gentil, known for his strength. We got... So, there was a presidential election where Al Gore was running against George Bush. And, okay, I don't want to get very political on this channel, but I do have to say that election was sketchy. It has never fully been proved that George Bush didn't do something really weird in that election to rig it. Because something was sketch about that election as to Al Gore losing. I'm not saying anything particular happened. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. But as someone who's not a conspiracy theorist, something was sketch about the way that the votes were counted and recounted or denied recountability in that election. Now, it is hilarious that the guy who had to speak for Al Gore had a last name Go Bush. No, it's like, please don't say my last name, otherwise you're going to be encouraging the other candidate. All right, we got someone named Immobile who's known for their speed. We got a judge named Lawless. We got, this one's kind of a stretch, someone who works for a food, maybe like a food bank company or something, named Ma Food. That one's kind of a stretch. This guy's called I See Nothing. And he's an eye doctor, is what that is. I don't know if I want to see an eye doctor called I See Nothing. That sounds a little scary. Of course, maybe, remember your inaptronyms could be coincidences. You have a police commissioner named Outlaw. You have a highly Catholic guy named Sin. And you have another one with the baseball being walk, where you're not supposed to walk the other team. So this is kind of interesting to me. I may look more in the future about whether nominative determinism is anything that I personally believe in, or whether I think it's more so that history has had many names and we are good at finding fun coincidences. So leave a comment if any of you have an opinion on to what degree it's coincidence versus nominative determinism. All right. Checking right here. Thank you to everyone joining here. And I'm going to take a very quick break to run inside and grab some water, while you folks, if you would like, can read a little more about the background of inaptronyms. I'll be back in 2 or 3 minutes, and we'll have another 20 or 30 minutes of some streaming where we're probably going to mostly go back to our game theory topics. All right, folks. Hope everyone's doing well. Somebody asked how the weather is here and time and date. Right now it's Friday at about 11:15, and the weather right now is very nice, but it's been pouring. Listen to the beginning of this stream. I mentioned the next episode will have some large puddles in it in my yard. There are, and actually a puddle I found outside my yard. I took a field trip to find a separate puddle during one of the rainy days. You see, we went clock fishing. You'll have to wait to see what I mean by that. Now, to do our last 20 or so minutes of some things I wanted to tell you about, we were looking at names, but we've been talking about a lot of rhymes. We got our names, our games, and our flames. And we're going to go back to games for a minute, because recently one of the episodes I released was about the magic cards that broke the game. And so I want to talk a little more about that sort of thing, of some things that didn't make it in that episode. For example, There are other trading card games that work on similar ways. Some of the most popular games in the world include Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon, which, for example, Yu-Gi-Oh! Has a cartoon, or perhaps you'd call it an anime, and also has cards that you play in a similar way to Magic cards. There's also Pokemon, which has games. I remember as a kid, some of my friends had those Game Boys where you'd plug in the cartridge of like Pokemon Red or whatever and play the Pokemon on the little machine. And Pokemon also has cards. And many people assume, well, Magic can't have been the oldest out of these. Those sound like really old ones. But it is. Magic cards came out before Pokemon ever made either a video game or a card, and before Yu-Gi-Oh! Ever made an anime or a card. And it's a type of game that I studied the oldest one here, but I have studied the others as well. Pokemon has an interesting resource system, but is not quite as well developed as the others. It's a little simpler, but it does have a pretty decent resource system I might want to study. Yu-Gi-Oh! Runs too fast. It has many interesting mechanics and innovations over time, but it's the type of thing where players often win on the first turn. And by just banning certain cards, Magic has somehow managed to make a game where out of 30,000 cards, you still can't design a deck that you can usually win on the first turn or two. Some formats, it's sometimes a battle for first turn or two, but not quite as much. Now, some other topics that I might want to discuss related to this are some of the interesting combinations of cards. Because in here, we mostly looked at the singular cards that were super overpowered. But there are certain times where a combo of two cards is what's overpowered, and they have to choose, I'm going to ban one or ban the other or things like that. Perhaps I will save that for a later stream because that might be a long topic, so I might just do a shorter rant about some of the other interesting Magic things that missed right there, that could, didn't show up in the episode. But in the future, I will probably do an episode that's a little more specific about the coolest combos of the Magic the Gathering history, where sometimes they've only had to ban one of the two cards and pick which one to prevent the combo from being overpowered. Now, one other interesting topic similar to that the other Magic the Gathering topics that could come up in future episodes are, one is the deck building challenge I mentioned like 20 streams ago, where I was trying to see that if you relaxed certain limits on deck construction, not changing the 4 of limit for anything but only basic lands you can have more than 4 of in your deck of the same card. So I'm still saying you can only have 4 of a given card in your deck if it's not a basic land. But if we said you didn't need 60 cards total in your deck, it used to be 40. And so let's say we had a different number. What is the largest deck I could construct that if the opponent can't magically do something to interact, because they're very lucky with some like 0 mana combo they can create at instant speed, occasionally an opponent could interrupt this, but assuming the opponent doesn't have anything super special up their sleeve, which we call this a goldfish opponent, an opponent that is not doing anything against you in the few turns you're trying to attack them and see if this thing can win a particular one. And by the way, to whoever left the comment, I am interested in answering that. You'll have to wait like 5 minutes, but I am interested in answering famous people who have influenced me. Now, with the Magic one, the deck building challenge was really interesting, and I think is going to be worth an episode, because at first I was able to figure out, okay, which like 7 card combos can always win of cards in your hand. Okay, you don't only need 7. You could get away with only like 4. But if I had 7 and I wanted to go to 8, which 8 card combos could still win with any 7 of these being the ones you draw? which 9 card combos could win with any 7 of these being the ones you draw. And I've gotten up to about a 22 card-ish deck. I still have to do some proving of which ones work or don't fully, but somewhere between 20 and 24 cards, I have created a deck that will always win on the first turn if the opponent doesn't have anything magical to interrupt it. Which usually the opponent doesn't have that early in the game, although some formats they theoretically could have ways to interrupt it. But against what we call a goldfish opponent, it's an interesting mathematical challenge that led me down this whole rabbit hole that I have not fully solved. I'm not sure where the number is between about 21 to 23 of how many cards I can get into this deck, because each time I added something new, I sometimes had to completely shift which cards are in the deck. It wasn't just adding one. It was like shifting all this stuff. And it's a wild experiment. One of the other ones I would like to make is actually just the opposite of the last episode I made. The last one I made was that long one about which magic cards are really overpowered. I want to make an episode also not just about the best cards in the game, but about the worst cards in the game, because it's a little more comical as opposed to a historical analysis, but it tells us a lot about game design to analyze what makes a card bad. What types of card could we assign titles like worst card ever? It turns out to be as interesting as best card ever. So those are topics that will come up with that in the future. For now, I suppose I'll answer this question real quick. I have a variety of influences. I am inspired by certain writers. Some of my favorite writers include fiction writers like Kurt Vonnegut, or mathematical writers like Martin Gardner or Raymond Smullyan or Clifford Pickover. I'm inspired by old school mathematicians like Euler and Ramanujan, Gauss, John Conway. I'm inspired by musicians, including some like classic rockish musicians such as the Beatles or David Bowie or Bob Dylan or things like that, as well, or Brian Eno, I need to give a shout out to, as well as hip-hop is something I listen to a lot. And some of my main inspirations, due to their life story and their chronology of work, although I know many of my viewers will not identify with this, include people like Gucci Mane, Chief Keef, Lil Wayne, and also some that I guess my audience might click more into because they're more like lyrical or whatever. Or I also highly appreciate hip-hop artists like the Wu-Tang Clan and RZA, who led the production, Nas, Kendrick Lamar. Who are some of the others I would need to shout out before I wrap that section up? MF Doom, one of the greatest, LP, Aesop Rock. And so those are some musicians that inspire me. I'm also inspired by some strange sorts of people. Like, I'm inspired by the people who make the show Jackass. And I am inspired by underground stunt groups that I watch on YouTube. There's a variety of stunt groups I've found on YouTube, although they have to dodge being banned. And I find it kind of chaotic and interesting, almost like how a magic trick distorts your sense of reality. Like, I find David Blaine interesting as well, the way that he'll do magic tricks as well as stunts. But I find people who just do the stunts to also be testing the limits of human ability. So I'm going to have to say that Steve-O from Jackass, not only for being one of the craziest stunt people of all time, but also for having a very cool journey to sobriety, where he used to be the craziest drug addict of all time, a psycho, and now he is like a vegan, sober guy who likes making YouTube videos and stuff. So those are some inspirations to me. There are many I'm sure I'm missing. I'm also inspired by random things that are not human. I'm inspired by nature to a big degree, by plants and animals. And I try and be inspired by myself and my blank notebooks. So those are a few. I'm sure if I thought about it further, I might have some more detailed answers, but those are off the top of my head. Some people I find inspiring. Now, we got a comment as well about the train and the birds being nice. And yes, let's see if we can see any birds. I don't know if they're visible because these are the tiny birds, but they're up in this tree. They're just so tiny. That's nice. I love birds. We've been getting a lot of crows in the yard as well. One of the episodes remaining in grade -2 began as me filming extra cool footage I haven't shown you guys of me feeding the local squirrels to make an episode about how I befriended a family of squirrels. But I didn't know if squirrels were enough to make a whole episode, so I'm going to make it about all the animals that visit my yard and classroom, with squirrels as the main focus. So there'll be an episode at some point in grade -2 that will be a lot about befriending the squirrels, and partially also about the cat I adopted about a year and a half ago, and my 2 cats who I adopted much longer before that. Now we have 3. It will also be about the weirder animals that visit, like skunks and possums and raccoons. And the crows, I think we'll be making some cameos because I've been seeing them. Oh, and thank you. We got a donation from BB Bosch here. That's super nice. Always appreciate that. Really helps our operation go forward. In the future, I've been looking at different funding options to make grade -3 have a larger budget. But for the rest of grade -2 and at any point in the future, donations really do help. What I spend them on is usually just hours I'm able to hire a camera person to be around here and film the stuff better. So, and the comment said that their favorite energy drink is Blue V. I don't know if I've ever heard of that. I don't drink many energy drinks. I sometimes drink a lot of caffeine. I haven't been recently, but I go in phases, and sometimes I have phases where I drink like a few cups of coffee each morning. Haven't done energy drinks as much, but they can be cool. Now, thank you though. And I am glad to see you back around because I definitely recognize your name from being around. And they said it's been a while. I have been less frequently on here. It's a mix of it's a mix of that I was very sick a few months ago. Now I'm better from that. My voice is hoarse from the burning oven thing I mentioned earlier in the stream. But I was sick for a while. I got 2 things in a row. I got something that was probably the flu or something along those lines, and then I got COVID. And then I've been better from that the past few weeks, but I've been very busy with a mix of large-scale personal projects, including like making the longest episode I've ever edited, which this did take a lot of time to make this hour-long episode there. But I'm also working on some other kind of long projects, both filmed ones for episodes, written ones to try and finish up some of my novels, and ones for games I want to design, and music that I'm trying to record from parts of songs that I've essentially finished apart from needing to record my vocals on them. I've also been dealing with a lot of personal things. I will explain all the personal things to you guys someday. I am an honest person, and I like to share with my audience here. So there will come a time not too long from now where I'll explain more details about whenever I say also personal stuff in a vague way. But that's where we're going to have to leave it at for the minute. Now, going forward, I do have a lot of stuff ready to post that I will post as soon as possible, but I'm not positive what my next week's going to be like because this personal stuff could conflict with my next week. However, going forward, I'm very excited about the transition to grade -3. In fact, after I get through some difficult stuff in the next month or two, I have a trip to Hawaii planned with my mom. My mom wanted to take a trip with her mom before her mom died and never got the chance because her mom got cancer after they had the plane tickets booked for the thing and they had to cancel it. And then my mom was like, well, do you want to take a trip with your mom? And I was like, absolutely. Like, I'll do that while you're around. Absolutely. And so we managed to get a cheapish thing to like the garden aisle of Hawaii, Kauai, where I will hopefully be able to film in front of some cool birds and plants. You know, maybe film some scenes where the background is some really cool birds and plants and stuff, and beaches and so on. So that will be lining up approximately with the grade -1 finale. So I'm like working on a few things in my life, also working on a lot of editing for a bunch of stuff that I did film for this channel that I just need to cut together and post. And also ramping up for that we just have 10 more episodes in grade -2. It's a few more months. And that the ending may end up in Hawaii. And when I come back in grade -3, I may live somewhere else because I have been looking at alternate housing and such. If I do, it probably will be close enough that I will be able to visit this classroom a few days a week and keep all the clocks here and such. In any case, thank you all who join and stick around with all of our strange combo wonders. We're just going to go to 1 hour today. So if anybody has any last questions, feel free to let me know. Apart from that, in the meantime, I'd like to tell you another stream we'll be doing at some point before long is going to be another roast of people's false, not the people, but the things they wrote, of false proofs of things that are overconfident. Because I have mentioned in some past streams that I find it quite funny to look at people who post online that they believe they have solved, like the Collatz conjecture, twin prime conjecture, Goldbach conjecture, one of these things that have been studied for many, many years. And the person believes they've solved it in like a really vague 3-paragraph, well, it kind of feels like this vibe, batch of words. And they can often be the same people who are very defensive when anyone tries to point out, well, you're a little vague in this part. Can you clarify there? No, what do you mean? You don't understand. Or like, well, actually, you are describing this math thing wrong. It actually works like this. No, it's... So, normally, I feel a little bad doing my stream, even though I find it hilarious, but I feel a little bad when I do the streams where I go through posts like that people have made and roast their overconfident fake proofs. However, one of these fellows who I have seen post many false proofs before commented the false proof on my Collatz conjecture episode, saying that he had proved the Collatz conjecture. And another one, he said it was that the proof that he put in a comment on this YouTube video proved the Collatz conjecture and another one that I think was the Goldbach conjecture or twin prime conjecture on top of that. I think it was Collatz and Goldbach, he said, or something. So now that one of these people has actually tried to spread the misinformation on one of my videos, I no longer feel bad that we're going to do a stream soon roasting the heck out of these fake proofs. And remember, we're not roasting the people. These people either are just overconfident, maybe have a bit of a mental illness, or just are misled in what they think about math and confused, or some mix of those. We're not roasting the people. we're roasting the false information that they are spreading, and now there's false information on my collapse conjecture video, so we're going to roast the heck out of that guy who I have already saved a whole collection of his proofs that I was like, well, I feel guilty if I roast these on stream because it's like some random math guy. It's like some stranger to me. I don't want to just be like picking fights. But now that he's commented on my video, we're not guilty anymore. Let's go. All right. So, to answer a few more comments before we wrap up, somebody asked my opinion on aliens. We have discussed that in the past and will again in the future. As a very short summary, I believe that aliens almost definitely exist somewhere in our universe. However, I don't think we have any proof whether they've visited Earth or not, and I think that a lot of the supposed proof of ancient civilizations having been visited by them can be overstated, and that it's not necessarily false, but that we should not trust it as true either, and that we don't really have much data about if aliens have ever visited the planet or not. So I think that they are out there, but we are not sure how close they are. And there's a chance that there's 1 trillion different alien planets, but they're all far enough apart that none can reach each other. So there are aliens. Have they visited? I don't know. If you see something that says, we got new proof that they've visited, probably don't believe it. But they're out there somewhere. Okay, no, sorry, Jesse, I cannot confirm or deny with science that bros go before hoes. I cannot confirm or deny that. That I'm responding to a comment to anyone mad about my language. No, I don't know about that expression, really. Like, I love my bros, but if that expression means, like, I don't know, if you mean, like, your friends over, like, somebody that you're having a casual relationship with, maybe sometimes. But if it means, like, men over women, nah, it's not men over women. Any gender is fine. So... Oh, and we got some more comments responding to it with some math. So yeah, good. We've got some more deductions on to what degree that might be an accurate equation. Now, I think the problem is that we're using variable terms, so they can mean different things. We've also got some comments about brains in a jar. That we can discuss that in another stream soon. I do need to wrap this up. I have some things to take care of today, and I planned on just going about an hour on this stream, which we have now hit. And in the future, we will hopefully be... in the future, we will certainly get back to the quick schedule again, where I was doing a lot more live streams and videos, and even a more polished version of that. My goal is to get to that quick schedule again, but have it look and sound better. So... we're going to get there. Hopefully it could even be in the next couple weeks. So stay tuned. And there will be a lot more cool content. On this channel, the next thing will probably be some random shorts that I already have filmed so that I still just need to cut down and post here. On the Combo Class channel, the next main episode will be about modular exponentiation. Now... thank you to everybody who has joined, and thank you to everyone wishing love and good thoughts. I wish you all love and good thoughts as well. Make sure to try and do a few of these things today. You don't have to do all of them. Try and do a few of them. Talk to a friend or family member. Pet an animal. Observe a cool plant you haven't seen before. Read from a book or article. Write something. Try and do a couple of those. Now, I'll be back before long. We'll see what before long means. I can't make any promises apart from the promise that we will get back as soon as I can to a quicker schedule. and that I think grade -2 was even cooler so far than grade -1. And I know that my plans for grade -3 will have us continue ramping in that direction. Grade -3 will be even cooler. We're not done with grade -2, though. We are about a little more than 2/3 of the way through. So I will catch you all again soon. Let's get a last peek at our staghorn fern clocks and stuff. And I love you all and hope you have a wonderful day.